And welcome back, everyone, for another week of the PCS Summer 2021. I am, of course, Pyrotechnics. I am joined by the wonderful Clement on this broadcast today, and we have got a whole lot of action. But before we get into that, we got to talk about our wonderful sponsors. You can see them down at the bottom of the screen. Of course, they are CTBC Bank, China Airlines, and Chunghwa Telecom. Thank you for making the PCS possible. Now, Clement, it's a new day and a new patch for this region. We've got 11.14 dropping today. A lot of changes come to be expected.
Yeah, there's so much exciting stuff happening. We're also going to be closing out our round one robin for a lot of these teams today. So it's time to really figure out who gets what place in the standings.
Yeah, things are starting to sift a little bit. I think in terms of surprises, we've maybe had a handful of them, but a lot of the teams from spring are really that have been really strong, have been asserting their dominance. We're talking about the PSGs still lossless, Beyond Gaming just behind them. But let's go ahead and take a look at the full standings right there. Machi Esports coming right after those top two, and boom, really rocking the charts. They had an interesting run of things, and last week we saw a few cracks in the armor, but they have been looking strong on the whole. J-Team and Hong Kong Attitude coming right behind them. And then, of course, our bottom four, BYG Dragons, Alpha Esports, who just found their first win last week, Impunity, but on a skid, and Liab still in the hunt for that first victory.
We do have a Warring Kingdom situation where the top three teams are just completely undefeatable right now. Look at all three of them on massive win streaks. And I want to give a special shout out to Hong Kong Attitude. Coming in 8th place in spring, they're steadily moving up the rosters. And we're going to find out today between them and J-Team who's going to be the gatekeeper to say that they're able to stay on top of the upper half of the league.
Absolutely. That's going to be a match certainly to look forward to, and I'm very excited to see how that battle will shake out. Hong Kong Attitude definitely been on some improvement. I want to give a shout out to Boom as well, but I think they're going to get quite tested today because they have some very stiff competition. Machi also really impressing, especially with Jimmy coming up with that player of, well, we'll talk about that in a minute because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I think there was some really strong performance, but yeah, some spoilers. Sorry, y'all, you're about to see it, not to worry. Really, really strong plays coming out of Machi across the board. But, of course, PSG Talon, Beyond Gaming, they have looked so insane. And there we go. Jimmy, of course, is our player of the week. And what a whopping set of stats we've got here, with 8 solo kills leading the league for week number 2, and that damage per minute as well.
A lot of players are already playing on live, and I just think they forgot about his Akali. It was left open twice, and he was able to slaughter the enemy team both times. Took his teams on a 5-0 win streak in week 2. So massive performance coming out from him, doing it on mainly assassins, and this is what Jimian was known for. He's really this rookie that's coming in the shoes of someone like Maple, showing that he can play a lot of high mechanical skill champions, and he's also has this knack for just staying alive in all of these team fights. Played super aggressively, always went in, and I remember the Silas game and the Viego game where there's multiple times where he's just running headfirst into the enemy team, but still surviving until the very end to clean up the entirety of the kills. Now, of course, Akali is barely in the meta right now. Some people can still play her, but I think it's been very well established that you cannot give Jimian just these assassin-type picks and let him run away with the game later on. You have to focus him at the start. He has to be your primary target, or he's going to be cleaning up the team fights.
Absolutely, and maybe we'll start to see some teams target him out a little bit in the picks and bans, but let's take a look at our matches for today. We will see Megabank Beyond Gaming taking the Rift first off, up against Boom Esports, and we'll see if Boom can potentially challenge our definitive number 2 in the league. Following that, we'll have Machi taking on the BYG Dragons. Machi, as we mentioned, have been looking absolutely fierce, so the Dragons certainly have quite a lot that they're going to have to handle. Boom will return against PSG Talon. I mean, that is a heck of a day for the Boom Esports squad to try and manage, but we'll see if they can maybe get a win here or there. And then a game that I'm extremely excited for, Clement, coming up after that. You mentioned it, J-Team versus Hong Kong Attitude, to see who can really be the middle of the table definitive winner for this middle point of the split.
Really comes down to who is the gatekeeper to the top 5. And for me, the most exciting matches are PSG and Hong Kong Attitude's matches, because with these 3 games, they actually close out their round 1 robin. And PSG look like they might be undefeated in round 1 for the first time this year. Last time around, Beyond Gaming, Megabank Beyond Gaming was there to spoil that one for them. And on the other hand, Hong Kong Attitude had a very, very poor run last time around, but this time with Kongria starting from the start, I think we might see Hong Kong Attitude make a huge stride forward, especially with their youngsters like Hong Suo and Slaytru, who, honestly, we've been very impressed with.
Absolutely. I think they have really shown up when it's counted. It's still a little bit rocky sometimes, but we'll see how it all goes as we get into our first game tonight. It will be Beyond Gaming. You can see their roster right there. PK will be starting once again. They do seem to have settled into PK as a starter. Really is a bit of a rock in that top lane, and I mean that literally. The man plays a lot of tanks. Following him will be Husha Maoan in the mid lane, and then Dago and Kino rounding it all out. And honestly, this squad, what's not to like, Clement? They are just solid across the board.
They have a very strong identity at this point. It seems like Dago is preferring the Aphelios as his first go-to champion. And even though Aphelios should be a third item carry, he's been dominating laning phase with it. So something that shouldn't happen, but is still happening. And in that configuration, I definitely think you want a big tank and PK on your front line. On the other hand, we move over to Poom Esports, where Holo is going to be starting over Alex.
Holo has been getting a little bit of game time every week. They just kind of sprinkle him into the composition every once in a while. So we'll see if he's able to step up to the plate here, but he'll be, of course, joined by Rocky in the top side, Ruby in the mid, and Wako and Pop will round out that Boom Esports roster. And if there ever is a tough schedule day for Boom, this is going to be it, because they've got the number 1 and number 2, not necessarily in that order, that they're going to try and knock off. Beyond Gaming are certainly tough customers. They'll have to face off against PSG later, but looking across the board, I think Boom have really performed pretty admirably, but there are a few places where you start to wonder, like, is this where they can get picked apart? And I'm particularly looking at Ruby, because the champion pool has been a little bit in a couple different directions. I think he's had a little bit of a harder time with the assassin meta.
I have to agree with you. I will say he did bring it back a little bit in week 2. It did go for the Viego, the LeBlancs in week 2, and showcase that, hey, I can actually hang with the new kids. I'm not this just old-timer that's only going to play control mages. But I think, everyone that's looking forward to this matchup knows that the main thing is the bottom lane. So far, Dago has just been killing it in the bottom side. He's up by over 1,000 gold at 15 minutes against his opposition, and the first big question is, can you actually survive the lane? Now, Wako does play a lot of things like Kalista and Varus. If I had to pick someone that is going to go for your early game aggressive ADCs, Wako would definitely be my top pick. So we can see that kind of contrast in styles, where I think Dago is going to be happy to stand on his Aphelios, and Wako be the one to try to take away the mantle of the lane king away from Dago.
That is not going to be easy to do. And, I think it really speaks to how strong of a laner Dago is that we do have the bottom side matchup being the featured one, because it just hasn't been as relevant in this meta. Now, we do move forward on a patch 11.14, and maybe we'll start to see a little bit of a shift there. But for the meantime, Dago still, as you mentioned, the undisputed lane king of the bottom side. We'll see if Wako can maybe tilt the crown a little bit, or maybe knock it off his head. He plays relatively safe, but I'd like to see if he is able to get a little more aggressive as we get into the picks and bans. Starting off, first match on 11.14 here. It's going to be Beyond Gaming banning at the Lee Sin, followed by the Gwen, and Xin Zhao is off the board as well.
A lot of big things that are happening on this patch. The main one definitely going to be the drop in Akali's priority. Went from 86% presence rating to the low teens, so lost about 70% of her players right there. And another big one is Nocturne. We did see the nerfs to the Stridebreaker coming in, and also he isn't as obscene as clearing the mid and top waves anymore. So, we don't really expect those two to be showing up as much, and I do think it puts a lot of pressure off of the red side bans. Red side really didn't have much freedom. A lot of times you were in the PCS exactly, we were seeing that red side was usually relegated to giving over either Viego or Xin Zhao in most of the drafts coming into it. But this time, I think that red side does have a little bit more room to play with. You don't always have to give as many power priority picks over onto the other side. For Beyond Gaming, to me, they have had Thresh banned away from them very, very consistently. And the great thing about Kino is that he can still play a very protective role when he doesn't have a protective champion necessarily. We have seen him go onto the Braum, and because of that Braum pick, Beyond Gaming has still been able to get a lot of Aphelios picks. So I think that has to be on the back of the mind of Boom Esports. Are we going to take this Aphelios away from someone like Dago? Wako could definitely run it himself. Or are we going to go with the early game aggression with something like the Varus or Kalista to counter it?
Yeah, definitely got to keep an eye on what they end up going for in that bottom side. But for right now, at least in the Boom side of the draft, it is a little bit of comfort. Rocky's most played champion, well, I guess tied up there with the Gwen. This split so far does see the Volibear coming in. And I wanted to talk on how the Akali dropping in priority is certainly going to be a relief for Ruby, but just like week 2, going to go ahead and go for the LeBlanc and try to get a little bit of assassin action going. On the Beyond side, I believe that's the first Diana we'll see for Husha this game.
Yeah, usually Husha has been more towards early game utility, and I personally really wanted to see his Lilia back. That was by far his best champion coming in on spring. But, Diana, another AP champion, definitely going to be very strong and does hint at the possibility of coming in with an AD mid, just like this Aurelia. This is another huge pick on 11.14, got massive amounts of buffs, especially the W now being able to reduce magic damage incoming. It makes her very powerful in the mid lane matchup. We really are harkening back to the days of, I think, Season 8, when Aurelia was dominating a lot of these mid champions. And this is one of those matchups that can flip on the knife's edge. Aurelia, once she hits level 6, goes all in on LeBlanc, and there's a good chance that she can actually just outright win the matchup. We have seen it multiple times now, just being picked into it. On the other hand, Boom Esports, it does look like they are going to go for the safe option here. They're not going to contest outright with an early aggression against someone like Dago, still giving him a lot of respect in lane, but they're not also going to take away the Aphelios either. They're keeping it rather safe and close to the chest by going with something that's rather standard in the Ezreal, and I think for them it does mean that Boom Esports are going to try to play this game more about mid-jungle rather than contesting Dago.
Yeah, we do want to keep an eye on what Holo ends up doing. Remember, when you swap in a jungler like that, you always wonder, is this going to shift things just a little bit on the Boom Esports side? We will see that Aphelios actually banned out along with the Varus, so they do use their last couple of bans to target the bot side, as it hasn't been locked yet. But again, Doggo, he's not a one-trick pony. He can do quite a lot, so I don't think he's going to be too fussed about this one. Boom will get a chance to keep on picking as Beyond remove the Olaf away from Holo. And that's going to be an Alistar locked in for the support.
Really safe pick. A lot of crowd control coming in as well. And this is the big pick everyone's been waiting for.
Boy.
Draven has been banned so many times, but no lock-ins yet for Doggo. We saw this.
He's got the hover right now.
Yeah, I really hope he locks that in. We saw PSG start banning this one, and everyone knows that Kaiwing and Doggo have been doing together for a very long time. So everyone just kind of jumped on the Draven ban train, but nah, we don't get it. It's gonna be a Kai'Sa.
It's so many times we get that is it gonna be the Doggo Draven? And then nope, debated back to the Kai'Sa. And I would not be surprised to see the Orange picked up here for PK. It's been a comfortable champion for him. And looking at this, it does seem like Beyond have kind of slotted into the 11.14 meta with that AD mid you talked about. Oh, wait a second. Mundo coming in. Mundo has been gaining some strength, still a big tank. But I do like this switch up at the last second.
Yeah, this is, I think Mundo is a little bit better in lane these days. We did see a small nerf to his passive, makes his gank windows a bit wider now, and the rest of the buffs were mainly targeted at his jungle performance, so not a lot to see right over there. Overall, I think Beyond Gaming does have a very flexible composition. It does have a lot of potential to just win out early, both the Aurelia and the Leona lane. If you get good ganks in, these are very, very easy lanes to snowball. And later on, they still have a very strong front line coming in with the Mundo. They can play a front-to-back teamfight style with a lot of pick components and even wombo combo components when you're thinking about the flawless duets coming in and also the Moonfall. On the other hand, Boom Esports, they do have a double hard crowd control combo coming in from both Holo and Ruby. And then if you throw Rocky into that, that's just so much pick potential into the top side. So for me, Boom Esports, they're definitely trying to roam pop onto the top side of the map and just try to get some 3v3 skirmishes going. They should win out the 3v3 when you have a Mundo on the other side early game. But later on, I do see this comp kind of falling off, and there's a lot of easy targets to just get picked out by the Kai'Sa. This is why you pick the Kai'Sa into the Ezreal matchup. You land the W, you go right in with the killer instincts, and you blow them up. So this is a composition where I need to see a lot from Ruby to kind of justify this being picked.
Yeah, and that's always a big question mark, right? From what we've seen of Ruby so far on Assassin, has been willing to start playing them more, but hasn't shined in the ways that we've seen on some of his more comfortable picks, like that Vladimir on day one, for instance.
Yeah.
We'll see if Boom can make that adaptation. The one thing that worries me, Clement, you talk about falling off later. Boom are the team that has the longest games in the league. Beyond are the Speedy Boys. They actually have the second fastest game time, despite a pretty slow one in the last week. And I think Beyond are going to be pretty happy with what they picked. He talked about how many options they've given themselves. They have the ability to get picks. They have a good front-to-back team fight. They can let Doggo pop off in the late game on this Kai'Sa. And it just feels like in the drafting phase, this is what Beyond are so good at, is giving themselves multiple win conditions. Whereas on the opposite side, Boom have a pretty clear game plan, trying to get that CC layered onto a single target, blow him up. Maybe it's going to be Doggo. We'll find out as we load up into our first game of Week 3 here in the PCS summer. Boom Esports looking to take that number 2 spot away from Beyond Gaming. It won't be an easy feat, but let's see if they can pull it off.
So coming from this early game, I really want to see Boom Esports actually try to get some early vision, especially on the top side here. They do want to play a very skirmish-focused game towards the top, so getting that going early is quite nice. I don't think they necessarily want a vertical jungle and trade sides here, but getting some vision really helps when you have a more early-centric game plan like that. Unfortunately, they're not actually going to use that crowd control advantage. I'm a little bit disappointed by this. I feel like letting PK get free shots on your team is probably not necessary. I would have just looked for a straight-up duel. If I'm playing 3v3, I'm definitely willing to hedge my bets a little bit, especially if I'm going against Beyond Gaming, who currently is the second-best team in the PCS. So this is not what I expected to happen, but at the same time, I feel like Boom Esports are not really the ones to pick up the tempo for the most part. They are a very slow team, like you mentioned. They do like playing with control mages. So, I'm a little bit disappointed, but I can see how this is more of Boom Esports style.
Yeah, it is definitely a bit more of a slow and steady what they like to do, but they are going to have to try and make those big plays, at least usually using the champions that they've got. But as we kick things off, it is just a no shenanigans start to this game, although Maon getting a little bit bullied early on.
And I do like this move from Husha. You can clearly see, and we've seen this many times in the PCS before, a lot of times Diana is going to have trouble level 3 if you just do the red to blue clear. And against the Volibear, who's extremely strong on level 3, then he can just walk into your jungle, do a number on you, and then still walk away. So this is Husha with a very defensive pathing. He's saying that, you know, I don't really want to have any action happen in the top side. I'm just going to be on the opposite direction of your clear, make sure I don't run into the bear early on. Another thing to mention is we do have a very aggressive setup coming in from Rocky. He's not running the flash here. It does have that ignite. So those dives are incredibly deadly if they do happen. And we'll see if Holo can find anything here.
Holo just waits on the edge of vision for Maon as he blade surges in and out. That's going to be Ruby coming and looking to land the chains, and that's a nice 1-2 punch. Just barely picking up first blood. Holo tanks an extra tower shot. Well played from the Boom Esports jungle mid combo.
Extremely well done, and this is exactly what we need to see. You have to get that double CC layer down going just to make sure that you can keep Aurelia down. This matchup is very good for LeBlanc early on, but if you don't keep the Aurelia behind enough on level 6, she can just all-in you and kill you from 100 to 0. So it's very critical that you make sure your levels 1 to 5 are enough of a cushion to get the Ruby still rolling post 6.
Yeah, Beyond really doing a lot to try and track out the jungle movements of Holo and avoid him best they can. You could see that ward that was placed down there by Maon a little earlier, I believe. But yeah, Husha way down on the bottom side, and so far, Boom Esports off to a good start. Definitely executing on what they needed to. And I did want to talk a little bit about the fact that Holo ended up being the one that goes on the Volibear, because at first it looked like it could have been a Rocky pick. But we'll talk about that later, because Kino does get knocked straight into tower, forced to burn his flash away, and they will get a stun off. Doggo unafraid, dishing the damage back and forth. And meanwhile, Husha is here, but no chance to really get in for it. Gang ends up just going for his own Krug camp down the bottom side. Boom definitely not afraid to tango a little bit.
Really nicely played coming out from the Boom side. Now, it was Kino trying to fish for an engage because his jungler was right in the river, but Boom Esports also knew that. They didn't take the bait. They played it very defensively and got free trades all over the place. In the meantime, see Mawan having a little bit of trouble in this lane. Now, this is to be expected. Usually you do see the Aurelia about down like 10, 15 CS in this matchup earlier on, but it's getting pretty uncomfortable, and we do have to remember that he doesn't have a flash. So he's, within range. Rocky still has that Ignite, but... Oh, that was so close.
Yeah, PK, this is where I want to talk about that top lane matchup, Clement, because they did wait until that top to give Rocky the counter pick, and just trying to bully on multiple lanes, burn those summoners, and then try to stack things up. And I love what they did here, because they were still able to give Holo this strong Volibear pick. And honestly, Rocky has been one of the more aggressive tops in a region that has quite a few of them. So I like them just kind of unleashing him here and just say, yeah, you think you can take PK? Go for it. Have some fun.
I think Rocky has been quietly the most improved player probably of this split. We didn't really see him having that many lane mistakes coming in. Before in the spring split, he was actually one of our top laners that got soloed killed the most. But this time around, I feel like he's having much more synergy with his jungler. He's keeping safe, and he knows his limits a lot better. This time, I do like this gank coming in from Beyond. There's not much for Husha to do, and they just saw Rocky burn his TP. So if they do get the kill here, it means that he's going to lose this entire wave coming into it.
Yeah, Rocky going to have to be a little careful here as PK steps forward. That's going to prompt the hook shot. He had to know something was up. So acting skills not quite enough there for PK. And meanwhile, Mawan, oh no, we got ourselves a 3-man dive. I don't think Rocky's going to link through this one, although he tries to take PK with them. It's not enough, and meanwhile, that'll prompt Boom Esports to just send Holo over to the Dragon to take that first Infernal, but a nice 3-man dive from Beyond.
Oh, Beyond Gaming just synchronized everything across the map so incredibly well. They had the jungle pathing top at the same time, where Mawan arrived back into lane with an earlier teleport. They get the push despite Mawan being behind so much CS, and they also sync it up with a massive way going in onto Rocky when he doesn't have TP. Like, this is really the difference between your top-tier teams and your sort of middle-of-the-pack or lower-tier teams. Your ability to synchronize everything that is happening across the map to give them the best outcome. If you look at that trade right here, Beyond Gaming got 1 kill, they got 2 plates in the top lane, and they also denied a ton of CS away from Rocky. So that was extremely beneficial for their position, and I believe Holo was actually spotted out. Okay, he definitely is spotted now, though.
Yeah, gonna have to run the other direction. Yeah, to top it off, too, like, on all that, well, I'll talk about it in a minute, because Mawan is out, he's fine, he's safe. Already in that deficit, it was critical. Beyond managed to get the kill for him, and meanwhile, now we got ourselves a play down the bottom side. Doggo looking for Wako as the exhaust is on. Hot body blocking for his AD. Wako staying alive here, but once again, Beyond, just such a dangerous bottom side as they go in for Raptidino, getting knocked in the tower. Whoa! Now that was wonderful here.
They might both be down.
Will take down Doggo. Husha, way too late to that party.
So what was happening there was Beyond Gaming was trying to go aggressive as their level 6 was going to come, but they don't find it. Oh, but Husha's still going in.
That's the Moonfall. Pop has nowhere to go, and he will be sacrificed. Picking the kill up is Husha, as there was a long roam from Mawan. It was just a very extended play there.
Yeah, both mid laners leaving the lane at the same time. Now PK has to survive on the flip side. Walks into Ruby, though.
That's going to be the pop of the Spell Shield. Holo takes a lot of damage as he goes in for the Stormbringer, and it looks like they'll be able to finish it off, but I don't think that was who they wanted to get the kill. Meanwhile, Kino on a roam, and Husha's incoming. We've got action all over the place, Clement.
Yeah, Kino doesn't find the stun, and Doggo isn't 6 just yet.
Ooh, Holo gets popped. That's Doggo getting the kill, though, and meanwhile, that Blast Cone, not the way Ruby wanted to go, getting his Mimic popped, and it does look like Beyond were the ones with just the quicker reaction time, and now they're going to go ahead and start up that Riptide. Let's take a look at that extended play down on the bottom side.
This is definitely them trying to go in when they're about to hit level 6. You could see after this play, Wako immediately tick 6, but unfortunately they do mistime this quite a bit. Pop does a bunch of damage here, body blocking, and with the exhaust, making sure that Doggo doesn't actually get that many auto attacks off. We see just both of them dying to a straight 2v2, and this is what we were talking about. Can Wako actually take down Doggo in the laning phase? The answer, a resounding yes. We come back, Beyond Gaming do take the Herald, But the laning situation in a lot of these different places isn't so good. Like, Boom Esports does have a lot of tempo advantage after that play.
They do. And I want to give a lot of credit to Pop as well, because he set up so much for Wako. Did end up getting the final kill onto Doggo, even though Wako was able to pick up Kino himself. But really, really good Alistar play in that bottom side of the straight up 2v2. And I think also kind of sacrificing himself a little bit there to ensure, well, Wako was going to be able to get away regardless on the Ezreal E, but honestly, just impressive support play. Meanwhile, back in the top, Rocky with the 1v1 finds that Hextech ultimatum, and PK is going to be a dead Mundo.
Goodbye. Even with the Mundo buffs, he's really not that powerful against someone that's running Ignite. They can cut through your healing. Your ultimate does a lot less in that situation. And unfortunately, I don't think PK is playing this lane very well. I think he should have kept his distance a bit more. The way he was pushing in regardless. And unfortunately, he gives up another kill into the top side. So this is looking like a Mundo that's A, of course, not going to be able to contest Rocky in the side lane, but B, most importantly, he's not going to be even tanky enough for himself to even provide a front line for Doggo. So this is a Mundo that's looking like it's in a lot of trouble, not being able to fulfill the role that was given in the team.
Yeah, but I really like what Boom have been doing here to just try and keep Beyond on a back foot. It's not something a lot of teams are capable of. And meanwhile, Holo coming in for the lane gank. They just try to bait this one out, but if nothing else, at least they get some turret damage. Doggo and Kino playing very safely here. And it's been a pretty big back and forth, but Boom getting the better of it impressively in this game so far.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of Husha roams into the mid lane, just trying to catch Ruby off guard here, but it's never really happened. However, this is a really good pathing coming from Husha. He gets over 3 pink wards in the river and gets to top lane in this position. So despite PK actually losing the 1v1, it doesn't matter because his team is just helping him out so much more compared to what Boom Esports is doing for Rocky.
Yeah, Boom are going to be able to at least get some damage. Plates down on the bottom side, look to start up this Mountain Dragon. Doggo and Kino uninterested in it, but really good movements by Husha. They managed to secure first brick up top side, despite PK losing out on that lane. Beyond Gaming still pretty relevant, of course. Only 1,000 gold deficit. Neutral objectives, though. That's 2 dragons in the pocket of Boom.
Yeah, it does look like they have that Drake stacking ability to go in. And when you have that much gravity on the Drakes, it's much easier for someone like LeBlanc to just wait in that brush by the right side of river and wait for a pick to come in. So they do trade something back. But I'm actually a little bit surprised here that Boom wasn't willing to go all in on the bottom side. When you have a volley bear and you know that 4 members are on the top side, typically that just is a go-ahead button for the bot lane trade. And I honestly feel like Beyond Gaming actually dodged a bullet right there because Boom Esports honestly did not play as aggressively as they should here. We do see Mawan again fishing for another gank. We've seen this 3 times in a row. Husha is playing incredibly close to Mawan, but so far, I love what Ruby has been doing. They have not been able to snowball this Aurelia whatsoever.
Yeah, Ruby has definitely started to take to some of these types of champions a little bit more. LeBlanc's certainly looking good in this game. He's playing safe enough when Husha's in lane. Holo's been giving him a decent bit of attention as well. And yeah, every single time somebody else comes out of those brushes, he's like, all right, I guess I'll just distort back. Holo, once again, on the opposite side of this one, they will be spotted. A lot of vision clearances, everybody going on those sprees. And Holo again tries to invade into this jungle to secure up as much vision for his team as possible and try to take away some of that jungle from Husha. But he's here to try and contest.
I don't think Husha is going to commit too hard on this one. We do have the LeBlanc coming a little bit closer. I think talking about this mid lane, it is really important to point out the buffs on 11.14. We do have the Flawless Duet now coming out regardless of distance at 0.25 seconds. So it really helps against the LeBlanc matchup because a lot of the times you actually want to put the Flawless Duet on that distortion, and that distortion is usually pretty far back. So in this matchup specifically, Aurelia has a lot more chances to kind of catch the LeBlanc out before she can really react. The distortion goes back, and the stun might already be landing there. So we can tell that Ruby's actually playing incredibly respectful in this one. And of course, Beyond Gaming is throwing just a ton of resources at him. So that's probably another reason that we're seeing this. But Ruby is getting to the point where I think he's really going to hurt. He's been CSing up incredibly well, and it's actually pretty difficult to CS on a LeBlanc like this. So, props to him. He is keeping himself fairly far ahead. And now's the chance to show if it's enough to get himself that critical pick onto the backline. We have the Drake coming up at 230. This is one where I think, going in onto the third Drake, Beyond Gaming really has to look to contend.
Yeah, it's so much fun watching that skill matchup, too. You talked about the flawless duet. You can see Ruby just distorts out in time to get away from it. And they were trying to bait to set up a play with Husha coming in, but Ruby was having absolutely none of it. Now there will be this Herald popping up, and it looks like we might be in for our first objective fight. Although, Boom, a little slow to this one. I don't know if they want this, Clement.
Yeah, they're really not in position, and Rocky's a bit too far away. They also don't have vision directly into the pit, so it does feel like they're just going to fish for Doggo, and here we go.
Oh, and they found him!
Oh.
My goodness, Ruby just blows him to smithereens. Meanwhile, they turn their attention over to Kino. Great play on that Alistar. And Ruby tags his way in, out the double chains, and Husha going in for 2, 3, man, Moonfall to find not one, but maybe a little bit more here as Rocky turns on a Mauwan. Boom get a lot more bang for their buck.
Yeah, they do get a 3-for-1 trade in this situation. I feel like Doggo was playing a little bit too carelessly. He thought he could clear the mid wave and then join with the killer's instinct, but that means he's isolated, and he just walked a little bit too far in that situation. I felt like with killer instinct, you have enough range to just stay at your tower, but he walks just a little bit too far forward here. You can see the play is to have him clear and then join with the ultimate, but he definitely misplays that given the situation. On the flip side, though, Beyond Gaming still does secure the Herald here, so that does give them a little bit more leverage when it comes to the Drake fight, the third critical Drake fight that is coming on. After Doggo dies here, I honestly think that Beyond Gaming are just caught in such a terrible position that they are going to lose members off of this regardless what they do. So, they do pick one back on Ruby, but it's definitely in Boom's Esports' favor, trading 3 kills over for that one Herald.
Yeah, you can tell that when they had to pop the Vanguard's Edge just to try and keep Boom from getting in the rest of their faces, that fight was probably going to be lost. Big credit, though, to Husha for picking up a priority target, taking down Ruby. Actually got the Mimic and then the proper LeBlanc in that one. But because of positioning here, despite the Herald going Beyond's way, now we've got Boom looking to go for this Dragon. Meanwhile, Pop is just such an aggressive Alistar, and the tag team really using their CC layering incredibly well. But Kino is just too tanky, and there's a shutdown by Husha onto Wako, and all of a sudden Beyond are on the chase. Meanwhile, Ruby's still going for the pick. Dragon will finally fall, but will the rest of Boom get out of here safely? That's the question. Meanwhile, Herald on the mid, just free charging. What a wacky turn of events.
Yeah, that was disgusting by Husha. That was a 3v2 skirmish that Husha basically solo killed Wako in. And I don't even think Wako expected it. He still had a Summoner on hand, still fell to the Diana, and just the burst damage coming in from the Hextech rocket right there. And a beautiful chase down by Beyond Gaming on the flip side, too. They make sure Boom Esports can't come back to defend, and they line up a double Herald charge for it to get back very, very close within striking distance on the gold lead. However, Boom Esports do get the third Drake, and we are getting a Mountain Drake. Not really the best Drake, I would say, when you're trying to play more of a skirmish comp and trying to kill targets. You definitely would prefer the Inferno in this situation, but a Mountain with Ezreal is still nothing to scoff at. And I think we're seeing kind of the big showdown coming in 5 minutes to boot here. Beyond Gaming, they don't have any more choices here. They're going to have to fight this one, and it's going to be about setup in these tight corridors.
Absolutely. I'm loving just watching Husha and Ruby just try to see who can be the better burst assassin in this one. Ruby will finish off the tower up top. Boom. It was a little overdue for them to finally secure one. but they will be able to do just that. You do want to keep an eye on the other side of the map as well, because Rocky up against PK should still be a big struggle for the Mundo, who has no summoner spells at the moment. And in that 1v1 situation with Ignite, certainly could find the killing blow. Meanwhile, the rest of Boom kind of roaming as a 4-man, looking for that mid tower, should be able to find it, and a little extra gold in their pockets. As you mentioned, Clement, Dragon is going to be a big objective for Boom to fight over, as they'll want to pick up that soul, even if it's not the optimal one for their team.
Yeah, definitely. You're still going to go for it. And at this point in time, I still don't think PK is actually tanky enough to give Beyond Gaming that 5v5 edge. We did talk about the compositions a little, and I did favor Beyond Gaming when it comes to 5v5 and late game full-on team fights. They have a triple dive comp, actually their entire team is consisted of divers. So they can go in, there's a lot of velocity on that first punch, and they can kill targets there, and they can mop up after the first kill from that point on. But at this point, I don't think their members are really tanky enough. We do see mid lane from Malan. This is kind of a peculiar build. We have seen mainly the Aurelias actually go still for the Divine Thunderer first, especially in mid lane. There's a lot more traffic in mid, and you do need that tankiness to survive. What Malan has built is much more of a side lane build. This is a build that's meant to match Rocky. You don't need that much sustain when you don't need that much max HP when you're just 1v1 in this situation. And I think that does kind of work to the detriment of Beyond Gaming when it comes to 5v5s. You're looking at Mundo and Aurelia that can't really approach for you. So for Beyond Gaming in the next fight, it has to come down to Husha. I think Husha is a key member you have to watch out here. He does have the Zhonya's already, and he has to make sure that his initial engage does wonders for Beyond Gaming. He has to catch everything out, and he actually has to tank a lot of this incoming damage from Ruby as well. So we'll see if they can make it work, but if I'm looking at the map right now with the side lane advantages going to Boom Esports, I feel like Boom Esports does have a better shot into this next streak.
They may be able to pull that one off for sure, and I think for Beyond Gaming, just to see if they can really start to shine on the 5v5s, even if the items that at least Mawan has been building is not necessarily working in that favor as well. Hard to blame him for not picking up the Sunderer, though. I mean, I think the shot might have been out of stock, and look what Boom has been building. 3 of them on their side this game to pair up with that Ludens and the Turbo Chem Tank.
Yeah, it's definitely a build where I feel like Beyond Gaming either have to find a pick or they need Husha to show up massively in one of these team fights. And you can tell that they're already grouped up mid. They know how critical this Ocean Soul is going to be for them, so they're willing to commit a little bit sooner than Boom Esports. And I feel like Boom Esports are not synchronizing this well enough. What they should have been doing is getting both side lanes prepped up to push against their opponent. They have that 1-3 advantage. Rocky is going to beat out Mundo, and we're going to have Ruby beating out Mawan for sure, but they didn't really set any of this up. So in this situation, Beyond Gaming are actually coming onto the map, I think, a lot more prepped. They have full vision control on the mid lane. They actually have the mid lane push, and they're arriving to the scene a little bit faster. So unfortunately for Boom Esports, a lot of those advantages that I highlighted don't really exist for them because of the execution really isn't there, and Beyond Gaming are going to get the inside track into this one.
Yes, they do. 5 seconds on that Drake, and it looks like they'll be just in position to try and finish this off quickly as Husha already sits inside. The question is, do Boom decide to pull that trigger and try to make a play? Look at Pop around the backside looking for a big Alistar.
Oh, they get the smite!
And that's going to be the smite steal away! Boom managed to grab the dragon, but do they grab the fight as well? Beyond looking for something, anything here, as Pop will be sacrificed. Wako pulled back in the 2-man Moonfall Doggo with the kill credit. And it looks like Pop manages to escape. Boom get out with just losing their bottom laner, and they're still playing around dangerously as Baron has hit the rift.
How does Wako keep on being the first one killed by Husha? I'm not sure how this is happening, but Wako with 2 summoners, full sums up, and being an Ezreal, is still the only one to die to Husha. That to me is I don't think it's supposed to happen, but let's watch this beautiful steal coming in from Holo. Really bails out the team. Despite the inferior setup, they're still able to get the objectives right here. I guess Wako just stays a little bit too long. That was definitely not a worthwhile arcane barrage. I feel like you just leave the scene in that spot, but he stays around, gets tagged by the slow, and dies with 2 summoners up. So, I guess Boom Esports can still be happy about this play, but it does leave Beyond Gaming with that massive opening to go for a Baron fight and know that Wako's going to be easy pickings.
Yeah, that's like the issue here is you're playing an Ezreal who is just getting kind of deleted on the map. And I wonder if part of that's just because of the threat that Husha's really putting out. But at the same time, it does leave you scratching your head just a little bit. Critically here, as Rocky goes in onto PK under tower, actually just going to look to try and finish that one up, but he's playing a very dangerous game on the Hextech ultimatum as a teleport actually gets himself back, double TPs, and we got ourselves a party in that bot lane. Rocky staying alive, but Malon says you will not escape as Ruby distorts his way away from the Aurelia. And we just got action across the board here, Clement. It does not end. In comes Pop to try and tag in. Malon dodging, blade surging, left, right, and center, and I think they'll be able to finish this one off. Vanguard's Edge is not a huge problem, as Ruby will finally claim that kill.
Whew, that was kind of close coming in from Ruby, but he does have extra help on Pop's side. The Korean duo definitely shutting down Beyond Gaming in the bottom side of the map. It was kind of risky looking at that one. I wasn't really sure they were going to make it in time, but Ruby with the teleport, just a little bit faster coming in on compared to Malon, does seal the deal in that 2-for-2, actually 2 versus 3 type of trade. And I think this was a really critical move coming in by their side. It does mean that they're going to be able to 1-3-1 a bit longer into that bot lane. That lane is now open up more, and they do get extra summoners on the solo lanes. So they kind of even out that deficit that Wako gave them in the previous team fight. And I do think that they're just going to pick on PK once more.
Yes, they are. PK's having a real bad time on that Mundo right now as Rocky claims another kill. And they're just starting to pile those into their top carry there, and it's just going to create so much pressure on the bottom side that Beyond are going to have to fight for, right? We talked about how this is a team that has the option to go for that front-to-back fight, but they're going to get stretched across the map at this rate. And Boom, really, honestly, credit for playing to the level of Beyond Gaming, and in some cases, even beyond in this game. We asked the question, could they be the ones to take down the number 2 team here in the PCS? And honestly, I feel like this is the closest game Beyond have had in a while.
Yeah, this is getting really down to the wire. A nail-biter game, and credit to where it's due. Boom Esports actually beat out all 3 lanes on Beyond Gaming's side, something I didn't think I would be seeing anytime soon. I feel like Mega Bank Beyond did go for a strategy that wasn't really their forte coming into the summer split. This is a comp that I think we saw a lot from them in spring, but we didn't really see a lot from in summer. So I think they're still testing out the waters here. And I think critically, because you're playing such a catch-oriented composition, but you don't have side lane control, vision control is almost entirely on Boom Esports, it has hampered Beyond Gaming quite a little bit. They haven't been able to find picks, and a lot of their members, especially the solo lanes that need to be able to tank a couple of hits, have not been able to do so because they're so far behind just in the game state.
And as a result, you talked about that vision control. It is going to be the Baron taken down. Pop might go down as he's being chased by Husha. Vanguard's Edge gets thrown out, but that's just going to prompt Polo to jump it. I don't believe it. They're all going to get away with it. Clement, Beyond Gaming just got caught snoozing.
Yeah, and that was also a pretty questionable teleport coming in from PK. He leaves the bottom side completely open. I don't understand why he would teleport to that position. He wasn't even behind enemy lines. He TPs into river and just gifts over more gold to Rocky. So this is, I hate to say it, but this is one of those really bad off games from PK. We have seen him have a couple of these games throughout the split where he's just completely destroyed in lane, and then he tries to make up for it in team fights. But so far, he hasn't had that impact in the 5v5 either. So really questionable positions coming in on the side of Mega Bank Beyond Gaming. Not sure what their team call was in that situation, but it really didn't work outside of Wako getting killed again.
I was wondering what happened to Wako off screen. We had other stuff to talk about, but yeah, he kind of just face checks into that one. But despite that, Boom have as a team been looking honestly fantastic. Wako positioning be damned.
Yeah, really interesting here, and I don't get this TP coming in from Rocky either. That was okay. That was rather peculiar, and we could see Beyond Gaming also throwing down the question mark at the same time. I guess Boom Esports just thought that Beyond were a lot closer to the Elder than they actually were. Now we do have a fighting chance coming in from Beyond Gaming. All they have to do is pick out one target, and Rocky is not in a terribly Ruby's not in terribly good position. He does pop over the wall. Now we do have to see the initial engage. I think all eyes have to be on Husha at this point. He does have the Banshees plus Zazania, so he can tank a lot and go in as the first member to initiate for BYG.
Ruby around the side, just trying to find a pick opening, but that ward does spot him out. Dragon not nearly low enough just yet, and here comes Rocky. They're just trying to close a trap, but meanwhile, it's Kino that starts things off. Wako goes golden in this one, popping that stopwatch, and it's a fight on two fronts here as Holo is running for the hills. Elder is still aggroed, and we're just seeing it happen on all sides as Doggo takes down the jungler, and things are starting to go wrong here for Boom Esports. Will they be able to find kills? They do have Husha, they do have Mawan, they do have Kino, and they close the jaws once again to win the fight.
Really well done by Boom Esports. You know, they start by losing the initial members, the jungler, and this time around, Wako was also very close on the verge of dying. Gets tagged out first, coming in by Kino. But I think the critical mistake here by Megabank Beyond Gaming is that they actually overstayed on top of the ramp. They should have backed out and moved themselves out of the trap. Instead, they get completely surrounded by the mobility of Boom Esports that are able to climb over the blue wall so easily. So let's take another look at the initial start of the fight. It looks pretty bad for Boom Esports. Wako once again caught, and they get their jungler incredibly low just at the start of it. But unfortunately for them, I think Beyond Gaming really don't allocate their members in the best fashion right here. They have two members going down super low on the backside. Honestly, I think Husha could have given up on Mawan. That was kind of a lost cause. Mawan's really underdeveloped this game anyway, so I think it's completely fine to leave him be. Unfortunately, they lose on the left side. They overstay on the right side, and Boom Esports are perfectly able to swing around, and now they have taken every single objective that has spawned from this Dragon Pit. I never thought the outcome of this game would be like this. Boom Esports winning out in all three lanes and also winning out on everything on the bottom side objectives.
Yeah, Boom have just been really on point with being able to find those little holes in Beyond's vision and drag them across the map, rip them apart. In that fight in particular, you saw it. Ruby and Rocky just really playing the misdirection game and trying to bait Husha and Mawan into a bad situation, or Husha and Doggo, I should say. And also, credit to Wako. You know, he realizes, hey, you know, I've been getting caught a lot. I'm going to go ahead and invest in that stopwatch, and man, it paid off almost immediately.
It certainly did. And I feel like right now, Megabank, their only option is to wait out the Elder Dragon. They can't really take a fight close to Boom Esports right now. They're going to have to wait a couple more seconds. We can see Ruby still ticking with it. Yeah.
That's going to be the big push, though, on the mid and the bottom, as Beyond are just trying to turtle their way to a win in this fight. But Boom have just played so respectfully. That is a massive knock-up, and the dunk down from Holo. Rocky on a rampage kill, and what a combo in this game. There are a little bit of low blinking health bars on the Boom side, but there is nobody but Doggo left. And with that triple kill for Rocky, the Nexus laid bare, and Boom will upset Beyond Gaming.
Holo ain't got no time for your jokes. He's just gonna slam down, disable both towers, and Pop did such a great engage as well. We could see Beyond Gaming, they're just hovering around their towers. They're waiting for that Elder Drake to drop down, and they're not willing to give up their ground. And Pop seizes that opening, gets the 3-man. Holo layers that on top with the Stormbringer, and Boom Esports completely body Beyond Gaming. Never thought I was gonna see this happen. If you're thinking about the calibers of these teams, Beyond Gaming definitely comes up as the favorite right here, but a very, very sweet upset from Boom Esports. It was great from start to finish. I thought they were playing a little bit too timid in the early game, not going for the bottom side trades, but I think the critical things that we saw in this game was that the solo lanes from Beyond Gaming never got going. BK was 0-3 in lane, and despite multiple attempts from Husha to kind of bait out the trade coming in from Ruby's LeBlanc, Ruby never took the bait, and Aurelia just fell so far behind in the laning phase, never got the level 6 turnaround that we were talking about, and they just conceded the entire 1-3-1 and map control over to Boom Esports. I can't express how impressed I am with Boom this time around.
Yeah, it was just such great coordination. And yeah, I want to give huge credit to the solo lanes, because Ruby and Rocky in particular, just, you talked about Rocky being a very improved player from the spring, but he was like well beyond that level. He goes Super Saiyan in this game, plays very smart with the counter pick, manages to dodge pretty much every bit of pressure. It took 3 members in the top side to finally bring him down in a solo, and he just bullied PK out of existence in this game. Obviously, some questionable decisions by Beyond on map movements, on teleport usages. But I think Doggo was effectively shut down in this one. It was just such a smart game from Boom, left, right, center. And the cherry on top, Clement, was just that massive come on and slam combo at the end there. Pop had some insane engages that set up the win and sealed the deal.
It's probably better than the entire Space Jam 2 movie. So, that's it's definitely worth the ticket price.
Maybe it's not a high bar, but still,
one.
I loved it.
Yeah, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. Talking about Space Jam, I love that movie when I was a kid as well. But a great impression coming in from Holo onto that one, and I think we are seeing sort of the some of the old questions coming back for Mega Bank Beyond Gaming. The biggest ones are, hey, are your solo lanes, especially in a PK configuration, strong enough to hold out to the best of the league? That's one of the reasons why they were such a slow playing team coming into spring as well, was that most of the times they actually were behind in 2 of their lanes. They were only ahead in the bottom side and in the jungle. That was the norm for them coming into this one, and they had to wait for big team fights where their coordination could bail them out. But this time around, Ruby was there to stamp everything down. Doggo never had a team fight where he was able to participate from start to finish. He was usually forced out of the team fights very early on by a fed LeBlanc. I think that really was the difference maker here. Beyond Gaming, they're not unfamiliar with slow games or bad starts from their solo laners, but not having Doggo pop off at any point in the team fights is definitely a new thing for them.
Yeah, this was a fast one by Boom standards, with a 32.5-minute win, really just doing a great job at setting themselves up for success in the early game, focusing on objectives. Yeah, they missed out on Heralds, but that's perfectly all right. Ruby played smart, Rocky played smart. Holo gave them a lot of attention, and Ruby will grab the MVP award. And I think if there's any doubt in anyone's mind, we talked about his champion pool. He has shown up on LeBlanc before. He's done it again, and I think this is definitely a ban-worthy champion for anybody facing Boom.
I'm willing to bet that he is no longer going to pick any more Vladimirs. Once that he's grown confidence on the LeBlanc, I think he's finally starting to realize that LeBlanc is actually just a better, longer-range Vladimir in this meta, and he's able to force out more burst damage safer. So I don't think we're going to see any Vlads this split anymore.
I mean, it's a bold statement, but you know what? He doesn't necessarily have to pull it out, so I am very excited to see what becomes of that as well. But after that first game, we got to go on a quick cool down. We'll be right back in 10.